A blizzard roared outside Chicago's Marriott, stranding James Carter, 34, with Ethan Brooks, 31, in a single hotel room. A booking error during a finance conference forced them together, unraveling James's carefully guarded secret, his unspoken feelings for Ethan. Having hidden his identity since a betrayal shattered his trust years ago, James now faced a storm within, fear of exposure clashing with a pull toward the man he'd watched from afar. One night could change everything or break him completely. James gripped his suitcase handle, exhaustion from a delayed flight dulling his senses. The desk clerk's words echoed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter. A system glitch double-booked half our reservations. We have one room left, king bed, 17th floor." Behind him, Ethan shifted, his presence a quiet weight. They'd barely spoken on the plane, their exchanges limited to work. Safe, professional, distant. 2 years of keeping his attraction to Ethan buried, and now this. With the storm warning, every hotel downtown is booked, the clerk added, handing over key cards. James opened his mouth to protest, but Ethan cut in. "We'll take it. It's 3 nights. We'll manage." His tone was steady, decisive, leaving no room for debate. James swallowed his objection, his stomach twisting as they stepped into the elevator. Silence hung heavy, broken only by the hum of the machinery. The room was small, the bed dominating the space. James stood frozen, calculating escape routes, maybe a red-eye flight home. Ethan dropped his bag with a thud. "Not ideal, but we're adults. We can handle this." His voice carried a hint of strain, betraying the calm he projected. James nodded, avoiding Ethan's gaze. "I'll take the chair," he offered, his words clipped. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Don't be ridiculous. We'll share. It's fine." They unpacked in tense choreography, each move deliberate to avoid crossing paths. James focused on his laptop, setting up for tomorrow's conference, but his thoughts spiraled. Ethan was everything he'd tried not to want. Confident, sharp, with a warmth that slipped past James's defenses. Straight, as far as James knew, and untouchable. Wanting him was a risk he couldn't afford, not after what happened in college. The memory stung. A friend's betrayal, outing him to a campus that turned cold overnight. He'd rebuilt his life, locked his truth away, but Ethan threatened to unravel it all. "I'm grabbing dinner downstairs," James said abruptly, needing air. "Mind if I join?" Ethan's question caught him off guard. At the crowded hotel restaurant, they found a corner table, surrounded by other stranded attendees. Over wine, the tension eased. "How long you been with the firm?" Ethan asked, leaning forward. "For years," James replied. "You?" "3. Always wondered why finance. You seem different, like you see things others miss." The observation hit too close. James deflected. "Just good at numbers." Ethan's eyes held his, searching. "I think it's more than that." Back in the room, the storm intensified, rain lashing the windows. A power outage plunged them into darkness, emergency lights flickering out. "So much for work," Ethan said from the bed's edge. James perched on the chair, heart racing. "This is challenging," he admitted. Ethan's soft laugh cut through the dark. "That's one word for it." Silence stretched, charged. "James," Ethan said, voice low, "this doesn't have to be weird. We can talk. Really talk." The invitation was dangerous, tempting James to let his guard down. But in the dark, with the storm raging, the walls he'd built felt fragile. One honest word could spark something unstoppable or destroy everything he'd fought to protect. Darkness cloaked the Chicago Marriott room, the storm outside raging as fiercely as the tension within James Carter. Ethan Brooks's words, "We can talk, really talk," hung in the air, a dare to cross a line James had guarded for years. One honest confession could ignite the feelings he'd buried, but the scars of betrayal warned him. Trust could cost everything. As thunder roared, the night promised to unravel secrets neither could escape. James shifted on the chair, the blackout stripping away his usual defenses. "Talk about what?" he asked, voice tight. Ethan's silhouette leaned forward on the bed's edge. "You. Me. Why this feels heavier than sharing a room." The directness hit hard. James gripped the chair's arm, memories of college flooding back, a friend's betrayal outing him, the whispers that followed, the family who turned cold. He'd locked his identity away, but Ethan's presence chipped at that armor. Work's easier to talk about. James deflected. Ethan didn't let it slide. We've done that for years. Tell me something real. Why do you always hold back? The question stung, too close to the truth. In the dark, honesty felt less impossible. I learned early that being open can backfire, James said. Someone I trusted, they used it against me. After that, I kept my life private. Safer that way. Ethan's silence was heavy, thoughtful. I get it. I've hidden parts of myself, too. Grew up in a family that expected me to be certain. Engaged once, called it off when I realized I was playing a role. His voice softened. Lately, I've been questioning who I am, especially around you. The admission landed like a spark. James's pulse raced. What do you mean? Ethan hesitated. You make me think about things I didn't expect. Like what I really want. The air crackled with possibility. James wanted to lean into it, to admit he'd watched Ethan for months, drawn to his sharp mind and quiet warmth. But fear clawed at him. Fear of rejection, of workplace fallout, of history repeating. This is dangerous, he said, barely above a whisper. We work together. There are rules. Ethan's voice was steady. Rules don't stop what's real. Do you feel it too? Before James could answer, his phone buzzed, slicing through the moment. His brother's name lit the screen, a name he hadn't seen in months. He froze, dread pooling. I have to take this, he muttered, stepping to the window. James, his brother's voice was sharp. Heard you're at some fancy conference. Still pretending you fit in with those people. The old accusation, freak, outsider, lurked beneath. James's grip tightened. I'm doing my job. What do you want? A pause. Just reminding you who you really are. The call ended, leaving James shaken. Ethan's voice broke the silence. Everything okay? James turned, the darkness hiding his trembling hands. Family stuff. They don't get me. Ethan stood, closing the distance. I heard enough. They don't see you. But I do. His words were soft, urgent. James, if we weren't colleagues, if none of this was complicated, would you want this? Us. The question was a live wire. James could lie, preserve the safe distance he'd clung to, or he could risk everything. Yes, he whispered, heart hammering. But it's not that simple. I've been burned before. Ethan didn't push, but his presence felt like a promise. I'm not that guy from your past. I'm here, and I'm not pretending anymore. Thunder crashed, and the space between them felt impossibly small. James's fear battled his longing. One step forward could change everything, or leave him exposed, vulnerable, broken. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one within. Morning light pierced the Chicago Marriott's windows, exposing the raw truth of the night before. James Carter's whispered yes to Ethan Brooks had cracked open a door he'd kept locked for years, but the harsh daylight brought reality crashing in. His brother's accusing voice echoed in his mind, a reminder of the cost of being seen. As Ethan stirred beside him, James faced a choice: lean into this fragile connection or rebuild the walls that had kept him safe. The storm wasn't over yet. James sat up, the bed creaking under the weight of their shared confession. Ethan's question, would you want this? Still hung between them, unanswered beyond James's reluctant admission. He'd spent years hiding, first from a family who called his truth unnatural, then from a world that judged what it didn't understand. Ethan, with his quiet intensity, threatened to undo that careful control. Morning, Ethan said, voice rough with sleep. So we talked. We did. James's tone was guarded, his mind racing. The conference loomed, their colleagues just floors away. Crossing this line could mean whispers, judgments, or worse, HR policies that could derail their careers. Ethan propped himself up, reading James's tension. Regrets? He asked, echoing their late-night honesty. James hesitated. Lying would be easier, but the truth slipped out. Not about you. About what happens next. Before Ethan could respond, James's phone buzzed again. Another call from his brother. He ignored it, but the vibration felt like a warning. Ethan noticed. He's persistent. Want to talk about it? James shook his head, but the words spilled anyway. He thinks I'm a disappointment. Always has. When I came out in college, he told everyone I was confused. Not me. The memory burned. His brother's betrayal had turned family gatherings into interrogations, leaving James to navigate their rejection alone. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's not on you. That's on him. He reached out, then stopped, respecting the space James seemed to need. I know this us is complicated, but last night felt right. James's chest ached. It did. But we're colleagues. If this goes wrong, we're stuck seeing each other every day. And I don't trust easily. Not after. He trailed off, the college betrayal flashing again. A friend who'd promised acceptance, then exposed him to ridicule. Ethan stood, pacing. I get it. I've got my own baggage. My family pushed me to be the perfect son, engaged, successful, straight. I walked away from that life because it wasn't mine. But you make me want to be honest. His voice cracked. I'm not asking for promises. Just a chance. James wanted to believe him, but fear gripped tighter. A chance for what? Sneaking around? Pretending at work? I've spent years hiding. I can't do it again. The air grew heavy. Ethan stopped pacing, his gaze steady. Then don't hide. Not with me. I'm not your brother or that guy from college. James's frustration flared. You don't get it. You've never had to prove who you are to people who should have loved you anyway. The words cut, and Ethan flinched. Maybe not, but I'm trying to understand. And I'm here, risking just as much. James's phone buzzed again, a text this time. You can't keep running from who you are. His brother's words felt like a slap, fueling his anger. This is why I don't do this, he snapped, turning to Ethan. You think it's simple, but it's not. Not for me. Ethan stepped closer, voice low. It's not simple for me either, but I'm not running. The challenge hung between them, raw and urgent. James's heart pounded, part fear, part longing. The conference awaited, but this moment felt like the real storm, one that could either break them or forge something unbreakable. James Carter's sharp words to Ethan Brooks lingered in the Chicago Marriott room, a wall of fear and anger threatening to smother their fragile connection. Ethan's challenge, I'm not running, demanded a choice. Retreat into the safety of solitude or risk trusting someone new. As the storm outside calmed, James's inner turmoil surged, fueled by his brother's taunting text and a lifetime of hiding. This moment could redefine everything, but the cost of courage felt impossibly high. James turned away from Ethan, his hands trembling as he silenced his phone. His brother's message burned in his mind. You can't keep running from who you are. The irony stung. Years of suppressing his identity to avoid judgment, only to face it now, in a hotel room with a man who saw him too clearly. Ethan stood still, giving him space but not retreating. I shouldn't have snapped, James said, voice low. It's not just you. It's everything. Ethan nodded, his tone careful. I heard what you said about your family, your past. I can't know what that's like, but I'm not here to push you into something you're not ready for. He paused, choosing his words. Last night, when we talked, I felt something real. I think you did too. Am I wrong? James's throat tightened. He wanted to deny it, to rebuild the walls that had kept him safe. But Ethan's honesty disarmed him. You're not wrong, he admitted. That's what scares me. The conference schedule loomed, but a text from their boss flashed on Ethan's phone. Morning sessions canceled due to storm damage. We've got a few hours, Ethan said, pocketing the device. Let's get breakfast. No pressure, just us. James hesitated, then nodded. The hotel restaurant was nearly empty. Other attendees scattered or sleeping in. They claimed a corner table, the hum of distant conversations a buffer against the weight of their own. Over coffee, Ethan broke the silence. Tell me something I don't know about you. Something small. James frowned, caught off guard. Why? Ethan shrugged. Because I want to know you, not just the guy from the office. The simplicity of it cracked something in James. I used to write poetry, he said, almost embarrassed. Stopped after college. Too many bad memories. Ethan leaned forward, intrigued. What kind? James's lips twitched. Awful angsty stuff, but it helped me process who I was. Ethan shared his own truth. I wanted to be a musician once. My parents called it a phase, pushed me toward business. I still play guitar, badly, when no one's around. His candor eased the tension, and for a moment, they were just two people trading pieces of themselves. But James's guard lingered. This is nice, he said, but back at work, it's not just us. There are rules, expectations. I've seen what happens when people cross lines. Ethan's gaze was steady. I know the risks. I'm not saying we announce anything. We take it slow outside the office. Figure out what this is. James wanted to believe it could work, but doubt gnawed at him. And if it falls apart, I've lost enough already. Ethan's voice softened. Then we're honest about it. No games. But James, what if it doesn't fall apart? What if we're missing something worth fighting for? The question hit hard. James's phone buzzed again, another text from his brother. Call me. We need to talk. Anger flared, but something else stirred defiance. He looked at Ethan, who'd shared his own struggles, who hadn't flinched at James's fear. One condition, James said, voice firm. If we try this, it's real. No pretending it's casual if it's not. Ethan's relief was palpable. Deal. And for the record, my feelings aren't casual. Haven't been for a while. As I left the restaurant, James felt the weight of his choice. The conference awaited, but this pact felt bigger, a step toward a truth he'd long avoided. His brother's judgment, the ghosts of betrayal, still loomed, but Ethan's quiet resolve sparked hope. The storm had shifted, and so had James. The Chicago Marriott's quiet hum couldn't mask the storm still raging in James Carter's heart. His pact with Ethan Brooks, to try to be honest, felt like a leap into uncharted territory, thrilling yet terrifying. As they returned to the office, professional masks back in place, James braced for the fallout. His brother's texts loomed like a shadow, demanding confrontation. The final day of the conference would test their resolve. Could they build something real, or would fear tear it apart? James sat through the afternoon panels, Ethan across the room, their stolen glances brief but electric. Every nod, every shared look carried the weight of their agreement. Yet doubt gnawed at James. Work was a minefield. Colleagues who'd noticed changes, policies that frowned on workplace bonds. He'd spent years blending in, hiding who he was. Now, Ethan's presence made that impossible. During a break, Ethan caught him by the coffee station. You okay? He asked, voice low. James forced a nod. Just adjusting. Back in their room that evening, the tension resurfaced. James's phone buzzed again, his brother, relentless. Ethan noticed. You can't keep ignoring him. James's jaw tightened. He wants me to apologize for being me. I'm done with that. Ethan sat beside him, close but not touching. Then tell him. You don't owe him your silence. The words struck deep. James had spent years dodging his family's judgment, letting their words define him. Ethan's quiet support shifted something. He dialed his brother. What do you want, Mark? James's voice was steady, sharper than he'd expected. Mark's tone dripped with disdain. You're living this lie, James. Acting like you're someone you're not. James's anger flared. The only lie was pretending I could please you. I'm done hiding who I am. Silence followed, then a bitter laugh. You'll regret this. The call ended, but instead of defeat, James felt free. He looked at Ethan, who'd overheard. You meant that, Ethan said, a quiet pride in his voice. Every word, James replied. The next morning, they checked out, the conference behind them. On the flight home, Ethan spoke softly. What now? We're back to reality. James exhaled. We keep it quiet at work, but outside we see where this goes. Ethan's hand brushed his briefly, a promise in the touch. I'm in. Back at the office, they were careful, professional exchanges, no lingering looks. But after hours, everything changed. Ethan texted, dinner tonight? James met him at a small diner across town, where conversation flowed easily, unguarded. They talked about dreams they'd shelved, fears they'd faced, and the future they might share. Weeks later, James stood taller, his truth no longer a burden. He'd stopped answering his brother's calls, choosing peace over conflict. At work, their secret held, but colleagues noticed James's newfound ease, his quiet confidence. One evening, over coffee, Ethan grinned. You're different, braver. James laughed, a sound he hadn't heard from himself in years. You're not so bad yourself. Ethan's gaze softened. We're worth this, you know. The risk. The diner's hum faded as James realized how far he'd come. He'd faced his past, defied his family's judgment, and found something real with Ethan. Their connection, born in a storm, had grown into something steady, honest. They weren't just colleagues anymore. They were two people choosing courage over fear, building a life where truth could thrive. The world might judge, but James no longer cared. Some risks were worth everything.